And welcome everyone. This is a very special moment. I didn't know of it, and I sent it to my friends who were musicians, and they'd never heard of tambrin drums. Dr. Pemberton wrote a short piece. She writes for the Tobago newspaper every week. She now has a total of over 850 articles over about 7 years, Dr. Pemberton. And she gave the feature of this thing called tambrin drums. And I contacted the drummers in Barbados, Nigel Willott, Salif. Have you heard of tambrin drums? And none of us did. She has then sent me a video, which I will send everyone online if they want it. And there is a discussion. But it's interesting from what we may hear, it seems that the tree that is used to make the tambrin drum is only found in Tobago. And the sound of the drums, I had never heard that. So I am looking forward to that. We also have online Dr. Stefan Walcott. He has worked several times, reworked what is called the quote unquote Barbados slave song. We would now say enslaved, but it's officially labeled as slave. We have to thank a European or an Englishman who happened to hear the singing. He said, apparently he could write music and he wrote the music. We do not know if he got it right. We do not know if he got the words right. Dr. Stefan Walcott has produced several versions of this song. So we're looking forward to that as well. Mr. Kevin Farmer can no longer join us because we've moved our time from 6 to 7 p.m. and he has a class. So the two between Dr. Pemberton looking at Tobago and Dr. Stefan Walcott looking at Barbados. And this song has been now adopted by UNESCO, the Memory of the World. It's quite an interesting evening. It's going to be an evening of speaking of the enslaved experience, about enslaved cultural practices, how the enslaved continue to resist slavery in whatever way they can, and certainly through the arts, through music, they did. So I'm welcoming Dr. Pemberton. We are unable to share her PowerPoint, but she knows her stuff so well that I'm sure we're going to enjoy her conversation. We'll have a question and answer period after Dr. Pemberton, Tambrin, and then we'll go to Dr. Stefan Walcott, listen to his talk, and then eventually everyone can come in a discussion. So Dr. Pemberton, over to you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Are you all hearing me? Are you hearing me? Okay, culture through our eyes. And I think that it's important for us to understand culture or anything else. Perspective is what matters, right? So we have stories about Barbados having no culture, and we want to look at statements like that with respect to perspective. Who is looking, what they're looking at, and why. So I am focusing on straight out of Africa, Tobago Tambrin. It's a drum. It's now the one of the famous drummers group is the Tobago Sweet Fingers, they call themselves. And this came via the slave route. So I have my little map showing the slave route and these ideas coming from traditional practices. I have included Sankofa, looking back, which is from the Akan people of Ghana. It's a symbol of the importance of learning of the past, respect for traditions, and it is okay to dig back to find what you are not satisfied with here. So what I tried to do is show the important role of culture during the slavery experience. The enslaved society managed itself using culture, which was brought. It's one of the things that was brought that was not immediately visible to the slavers. So, well, I said, who is looking at this culture? What are they looking for? Why are they looking? So they're looking, and slavers were looking at what enslaved people did in an effort to strengthen their control over people. You controlled, and in this control, Barbados is very important because the Barbados slave laws is what was established as the norm across the British Caribbean. And it stressed brutality to smother, because the whole notion of enslaved people that they wanted to push was that, one, you're inferior, you have to be subjected, you must obey, and you didn't have a life. Anything you had is what you got there, and whatever you got from them, they describe it as civilization, right? So enslaved people had recourse to their culture. They didn't have much else because the whole system was full of don'ts, laws, punishments, limitations, restrictions of all kinds. So for them, culture was a source of strength because they could do things with culture without always being detected. So in defiance, and this is where culture and resistance come in. You can defy the system without their being able to recognize it as defiance until, immediately no. After a while, they came to pick up on it. So you use your culture and as a force of resistance. So you could resist by fighting, and you would be outnumbered, you would be out-weaponed. But if you use your cultural resistance, then you had a better chance of survival. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Barbadian Slave Code was what determined how laws were applied, or what laws and how they were applied to prevent resistance. So it was a very brutal system. The restrictions were very rigid. And when they discovered that you were able to go around their restrictions, then they became more rigid. But in terms of restrictions, apart from the laws, they brought Christianity to their assistance. And Christianity taught subjection. You must obey in this life and you might get something better in the next life. You were savage, you were primitive, you were pagan. All these negatives sought to drive home their point that you were an inferior person, you were uncivilized, and so you should be Christianized. Then you have the Christian missions coming, but the Christian missions had, in all the other forms of armor that they used to control people, they used music and song. And for the enslaved people of Tobago, these were converted into aids to their liberation and their mechanisms of defiance. Now, it was the drum. And I say somewhere lower down that the drum was so very much as the heart of African culture, right? But the drum was significant for Africans wherever they were as a form of communication. So, we have the African talking drums. You can send messages over long distances without people even knowing what messages you are sending. So they have different drum beats when there was a crisis. There's drum beat when you wanted to have a meeting. You have a drum beat when somebody was sick and dying and they needed to have the funeral rites organized and so on. The drum was also used for entertainment. So when they had their free time, when they had something to celebrate, they used drum. And then it was also, the drums were also part of spiritual release. Is associated with, in Africa, it was associated with religious activity. And so for the spiritual release, which the enslaved people used, the drums. So they were willing to utilize whatever material was available locally to make their drums. So they would use tree trunks, they dig out tree trunks, any articles around the place that were not used were dragged into the drumming business in order to create the drums that they wanted to have. Right now, the more the slavers applied pressure to force the end of drumming, African creativity increased, creating drums across the Caribbean. What happened? There was a resistant movement in music and culture. They got used to that music to get around law, and so that resulted in Tobago in the creation of the tambrin drum. What did they use that were available in Tobago? Discarded drums and the kegs that were used for shipping rum and molasses from the island to wherever it was sold. They used discarded ones. They also stole some from the estates when they got the opportunity and converted these into a musical instrument. And these drums were headed by animal skin. First it was the goat, and then when goat skins were scarce, they used other animal skins. And then this drum, so the first ones were big, these kegs and these molasses drums. They use cheese box. So you have the drum, and then you have a topping. You put the goat skin on the top of the drum, and you have to tie it down. But when the cheese, they started importing cheese in Tobago, the cheese boxes provided the ideal size of topping for these drums. And then they would tie around the topping, and the cheese boxes were the right size, so they fitted. But then they had to tie the rims when they stopped bringing cheese, when Tobago had gone into a serious decline of the sugar industry, and they couldn't afford many things. One of them was cheese. So what they used to tie the animal skin or the goat skin on the top of the drum was a vine called the wild cassava that grew in the forest on the island. So they have to prepare the drums now. The important thing about the drums was that they had to be fired. So before the drummers could play, the goat skin had to be heated up to the right temperature. The temperature varied with the different types of drums, which I will talk about in a little while, right? So we have the drums. We have a system of preparing the drums by firing. So once you have that firing of drums, people, the plantation owners got to know that something was happening. So they passed more laws and intensified their punishments for stealing estate property, whether they picked it up off the ground or off the estate, it didn't matter. They would search suspected areas where drums were being made. So there was just a conviction that they had to get rid of these drums. They would confiscate whatever they found, destroy them, and then what they did was to try to prevent access to animal skins. Now, it was common along the estates to kill animals for food, and therefore confiscating those skins was a hard task. they managed to confiscate some, but they certainly weren't able to get all. But you have to hide the skins, and the problem with the skins, if they were just, the animal was just slaughtered, and you will get some smells which might give away where you were hiding it. Anyway, what the planters did, inspect premises wherever they suspected the drums were being made, and they will keep inspecting and destroying. So what happened is that the first attack and the first wave of destruction led to large drums going out of style. And how did the enslaved respond? They made smaller drums. They hid their drums in their bedding or under their beds, and made smaller drums which were easier to hide and which turned out to give what they considered a more pleasing sound. So there are different drums. We have three styles: the bass, the boom, the ones with the deepest tones. Then you have the fuller or roller, which carry the tune, and then the high tone cutter. So these were the three drums that were created in Tobago. Then you had the fiddle. The fiddle was something that gave a pitch similar to the violin. And then they had a triangle that somebody hit with a metal nail or something and carried, and between the three drums and these two items, that's the constituted what was and is considered a tambrin band. All right. So drumming was important as a feature of life in Africa. It was integral to community survival. I mean, I mentioned earlier the Barbados slave laws, which sought to prevent, but drumming was central to African culture. Plantation owners, enslavers did not always understand the messages communicated by drumming, and therefore they became suspicious of it. They were aware that the meaning was deeper than they could fathom, and they would not take any chance. So that brought it down to a tighter system of repression against drum and drum expression in Tobago and in other parts of the Caribbean as well. Drumming became associated with plots and revolts, and hence the banning factor was important. But what I want you to recognize is that as the banning tightened, so too did the resistance, determination increase and intensify into creating something that they could manage on despite the restrictions under which they faced. Tambrin music was provided for various activities. One, entertainment, when they had something to celebrate. And so dances and spiritual rituals in Tobago, tambrin was required. From the 18th century, there was the drum developed in Tobago in the context of fear and repression, but also came with that a determination to continue despite the restrictions. And so when enslavement was brought to an end in 1833, well, it's actually more 1837, you had now that tambrin men being able to pursue their culture without fear of restriction. Now, the laws continued, but because the population spread away from the plantations, it became more difficult for the laws to be enforced. They continued until right into the 20th century, they had these laws against drumming and everything that was African. And when Trinidad and Tobago unified, the Trinidadi laws had those same kind of restrictions. But we ended up with this tambrin music. Now, tambrin music allowed you, Africans, to communicate with others, but the spiritual part, to communicate with the ancestral spirits. They had a real dance, something called a dance. They were associated with two main dances, bongo and reel. The reel dance was one that took you into a trance. You were transported. And in that process, you made contact with the ancestors, and you could get warnings, advice, directions as to how life would go. It is an activity that some people are prone to, are interested in, and are willing participants. It's a practice that was highly condemned by the Christian churches, but it remains an activity that people continue to engage in. And so we have, up to today, we have tambrin bands. Tobago Sweet Fingers is one of the most popular. They still play. They are still hired for celebrations, weddings. They are part of the Tobago Heritage Festival that is celebrated every year in the 2 weeks before Emancipation Day. And it is part, people are comfortable with the tambrin band, with how they have to come, and they stay outside and they wait until it's time for their appearance, and then they heat the drums up. So they have to have a little fire outside. They heat the drums up before they play and get the 3 drums to the right tones, and then they play the music. So that is the history of the tambrin band, tambrin music in Tobago. I am really sorry I couldn't illustrate, but you will get the context.
We have the recordings that you sent us. You sent me a couple pieces of music so we can listen to it.
Yes.
Allison? If she's still on. Ladies and gentlemen, London is here. Hello. Good evening, London. She at first couldn't get in, but she's on. Alison, can you hear me? Pause on the first recording, Alison.
Pardon?
Pause on the first recording. There are 2 recordings. No, don't worry. It's gonna finish in 10 seconds. That's fine. Right. Dr. Pemberton, I was there dancing. I'm sure everyone was dancing. It's called PASEA music. PASEA. How do you pronounce that?
What?
What we just heard, you said the Royal Sweet Fingers Tambrin Band. And the first song is PASEA music, PASEA.
PASEA, I don't know what PASEA music is. It's dance, tambrin dance music. I don't know.
All right, before we have a second, let's welcome, honestly, London has finally gotten in. So I'm welcoming Lara, who is 11 o'clock in London, or actually minutes to 12. Lara, thank you for joining us. Lara is born in London, but of Yoruba heritage. So she was curious about. Hi, Lara.
Carla, good evening.
Hello.
All right. I will let you come back on in the end when Dr. Pemberton has finished presenting, but welcome, Lara. It is minutes to midnight. Thank you for staying up. Dr. Pemberton, you have a second selection here. It's called Real Music. So is this the music you said that they would dance and get into a trance?
Yes.
All right, Alison, let's go. It's very long, so we can cut off halfway.
Yes, cut off half, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Real Music, REEL.
That's the dance. The dance is the real.
The dance is real.
You can burn the 3 drums. The high tone, the cutter, and the one that carrying the tune.
Can you lower it down? Pause, Alison. Thank you. What were you saying, Dr. Pemberton?
Drawing the attention to the fact that they could detect the 3 types of drum: the bass, the one that carries the tune, the high tone cutter. The high tone one is the cutter, and the one that carries the tune is the filler.
Yes, online we have a number of musicians. Dr. Derek Murray is here. I don't know if Derek has a question for you. Dr. Stefan Walcott is here. Any other musicians want to comment? Have you heard this music before? 3 drums.
Hey, everybody. Oh, sorry, Derek, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Dr. Walcott. Stefan.
Hi. This music, this is the first time I was immersed in, well, to this length, the level of exposure. It reminds me a lot of plena. There's a musical style from Puerto Rico that has the same type of drums, with the same 3 drums pitched at different intervals as well too, and they're played very similarly. So the traditions are quite similar. Plena has its roots, I've been told, in the English-speaking Caribbean via St. Kitts. So some plantation workers, I believe, went over to Puerto Rico to work, and they took that tradition with them. So it's interesting that it's so strong in Tobago, but it's very similar to plena.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of this in Kitts into Puerto Rico roots, but that's something I would like to check. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Derek, any comments?
No, except that the whole idea of the three drums is very common in the Caribbean.
Yes.
With the bass, the middle, and the I guess the lead drum. And so this is the first time I'm hearing the tambourine drums. And it's very similar to the other triune drums orchestras that we hear in the Caribbean. The only difference, for example, in Cuba with the batter drums, it's the bass drum, the lowest drum that improvises, that leads. And whereas with these drums, it is the high pitched drums of most of the others, yeah. But I like it.
Any other musicians or any other comments online from anyone? Is the music familiar? Certainly had me moving in my chair. Any other comments, anyone? Okay. Dr. Pemberton, thank you. We will come back to you again. I just want to give Dr. Walcott now. He's presenting on the Barbados slave song. Dr. Walcott, how do you want us to do this? Do you want us to hear your interpretation of the song, or you speak and then we play what you sent us?
No, I think it's better to play the song first.
Okay. Allison? I think I need to buy champagne for Allison. So this is the Barbados slave song, as reinterpreted by Dr. Walcott.
Massa by me, he set me free. Oh, Master, set me free.
Oh, that takes your breath away. Dr. Walcott, you can take it from here. Very haunting image. This very interesting interpretation. And what Dr. Pemberton shared with us in the beginning really comes home in the song and the images. Over to you, Dr. Walcott.
Right. So thank you very much, Dr. Burrowes, for that. It was the intention for it to be that way. So I came across this song like most scholars, I think, did when doing research for my PhD thesis. And I had never heard this song before then. I heard all the song by other colleagues. But I came across the song and I realized that it did not have the connection with the other folk songs that I have heard. So it was an anomaly from that respect, because Barbadian folk songs, for those who are familiar with music, all of them are in major. Like 99% of them that have been passed on via through oral means or via the text folk songs of Barbados, which was researched by Trevor Marshall. So this song was unique from that aspect. So it was okay, is in minor first thing, is in natural minor, which has some context and pretext to other Western African forms. I mean, maybe not in terms of the modality of minor. I don't want to get too much into music theory, but the other spaces like Cuba, for example, they have songs that use certain notes that can be interpreted as being in this minor mode. So this one was unique from that aspect. The fact that it was sung a cappella by a female also was something that grabbed me, because the later folk songs to pass on in Barbados, they do not have or deal directly with the content of enslavement like this one did either, and from a female's perspective, even less so. So it really stood out from that. Now, the accuracy of the transcription, as Dr. Burrowes said, is always up to debate. I do not necessarily think he grasped everything, because it's hard, especially coming from a Western notation perspective, to grasp a song sung a cappella by an enslaved person, probably using a lot of slides. If we will go, which is like sliding between notes, like not to not hitting pitches exact. And especially he not necessarily familiar with that tradition, maybe. So he could have missed a lot of the content, a lot of the not pitches, but a lot of the sounds, the textures that make or really define the music of the enslaved period. But if we are taking what he wrote and said that there's some validity to it, then you can see the connections with other places within the Caribbean and within Western and Central Africa too. So I do think there's some validity in his transcription. Maybe not full accuracy, as I was saying, because he missed some elements, but the core song, I do believe, has some sort of relation to. It's not like completely wild and where the hell is this? It's like it could be really a transcription of an enslaved person singing this song. So I want to share the screen. Alison, do I have sharing privileges? I want to show the original context.
Yes, you do. Go right ahead.
Right. So let me first sign in here. I'm signing in to the right here. So I should be here with you guys on share. Okay. All right. So let me do that. I'm here now. Share. Here we go. Y'all are seeing the sharing has stopped. Okay, let me go again. Let me bring this up. Okay. Right. Share again. Okay, you guys can see the transcription now.
You
Music?
start. There we are.
Yeah, cool. Okay, fantastic. So this is my transcription of the transcription because it was written, how it was written was not legible. So I transcribed it into a music program, and this is what that's what it looks like. So this is the original lyrics before all of that other stuff that was added in the arrangement. So we can see, as I was saying before, that it uses a lot of notes from a scale you would expect, but this note is anomalous, like certain notes you wouldn't expect to find, because Western and Central African people use a lot of something called the pentatonic scale, where they do not use all the elements from the full scale that we know, but just 5 notes. They select 5 notes, and a lot of their songs are based around this pentatonic scale. Like, given the time period where it was supposed to be taken, that is what I assume the basis of what the scale would have been. But he could have reinterpreted this as sure this could have been another E that was the person slides under, so he probably could have interpreted it that way. But anyhow, if you were taking it as is, it does have that certain minor tonality, a little too firm for my liking, and too much other notes outside of the pentatonic scale, but those are the basic melody. So the harmony I added later, which are the chords that you see above here, those were not from the original transcription. So we have the main melody, and then it goes into these as, probably some sort of lament as or improvise as. He doesn't go on to explain where they come from. So it's a very short song, which also makes sense because there's no way it's going to be in ballad form, verse and chorus, like we expect given the time period and given the Western and Central African song tradition. We don't expect to find a long verses or long detailed verses. So we expect to find short melodic phrases, which this song definitely has. So I do believe, as I said, there's some validity in it. So for me now, in looking to present it in a more modern context, as it was a cappella, there's no drum rhythms notated. So when I redid it, I brought the Nyabingi drum pattern, and therefore borrowed a lot from that Rastafarian spiritual tradition in trying to reinterpret this, another grounded form in terms of Caribbean culture when it comes to the rootedness in Western and Central Africa. And therefore, bringing a female voice to it is also very important. And the singer, Deronda Smith, is very heavily steeped in the blues. So also connecting that plantation music, that post-plantation music to this song as well too. So we have the Nyabingi drumming, we have the original Dixon slave song sung by a female. Plus now we have the Rastafarian and blues coming into it. So that was the whole idea behind the reinterpretation of this particular Dixon slave song. So there are other versions out there. There's one done by Roger Gibbs. He possibly posted one of the early ones on YouTube, which is him singing a cappella, which too has a very haunting, it's a haunting song just in general. There's when you get to those as especially, then you get that coming over in terms of how the melody fits together at that particular point. And there's also one done recently, was this discovered by the Gloucestershire, was it Dr. Burrowes? It was everyone sent us this message, Dr. Burrowes, and I were speaking on this when it was rediscovered again. But Roger had long recorded years before that they suddenly came across this song.
Yeah, so because UNESCO made it memory of the world or something, it got international standing. And yes, it's apparently that university, quote unquote, discovered it. And here we go again. If ancestors are making us listen, making us listen.
Right. So as I said before, it's an anomaly when it comes to Barbadian folk songs. We don't have any songs like this, and there are no other songs of this mold that are part of our song heritage. So yeah, that's my contribution to the Dixon slave song, and I hope it gets some more younger ears tuning into it as well too, where we can keep this particular story, this narrative that this enslaved person had to tell in life.
Well, we have, including me and you, 27 persons online. Would anyone like to comment? I know I would, but I'm going to shush as the moderator. Anyone like to comment? Musicians or anyone online? What do you think? How do you feel? Hello? Dr. Pemberton.
Yeah, I am very interested in this Barbados slave song, because I have not, and I have spoken to other people, and we have not discovered any slave song from Tobago. And I don't know that they are, and I don't know that, I'm not sure that they are not, but we're just not aware, and I don't see why we would not have had. Now, this slave song, Dr. Walcott, who recorded it? What was the original source of the recording?
There wasn't recorded, it was transcribed. So the original,
Transcribed.
yeah, the original transcription was found in the recollections, those travel logs that were popular. Dr. Burrowes could correct me at the time, where, you know, European traveler visits the Caribbean and comes, writes a book about it. So there's part of the literary culture at the time. So this was found, one of the songs found within one of these travel logs.
Yeah, if I can help Dr. Walcott there. You know, Dixon was in Barbados, huh? He wrote on the Carterton Papers, and it's in there. I know Joshua Steele, a very strange planter, because at one stage, apparently, he freed all of his enslaved people on his plantation, and the Barbadian planters went nuts. So he had to put them back onto slavery. So it needs someone who sees them as human, which is so unusual, and then takes the time to transcribe it. We don't know the background to it, but for example, when I was a student doing my work in PhD, I came across it. I looked at it, but I'm not a musician, so I thought, okay. And then when it was quote unquote discovered again, I said, but it's been in the books all the time. None of us as historians paid attention. So we now have a Dr. Walcott who will pay attention. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Any other comments from anyone?
Hi, good night. I have a question. Roxanne Burton for Dr. Walcott. Well, first of all, thank you so much to both presenters. I'm learning a lot. So you said, Dr. Walcott, that you chose the Nyabingi Drum Foundation. So I was wondering why you chose that as opposed to another one of the Caribbean drum options.
I want to choose one that fits the tempo. And within Barbados, we do not have indigenous rhythms that are that slow. But that tradition I found that to be a suitable rhythmic vehicle, because then the other lyrics that are stacked on top of the foundational rhythm need to fit. And that was the most appropriate one, and also giving it spirituality. That's why I chose the rhythm. It was a musical choice, a musical aesthetical choice, as opposed to a real political and an identity one.
Okay, thank you.
Haunting. Any other comments from anyone? The comment I've been sitting on for a while is they say Barbados has no culture. ... Comment. Yes. Derek, now I'm going to reach to the musicians. Derek, comments.
Yes, Marcia, I should tell you that I'm a drummer. I'm not a musician
You're a drummer?
I'm not a musician in the legal, Stefan. So, but I am interested in that comment as well. You know, Barbados has no culture, because we actually did believe that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You know, up until the 70s, the 80s, that was a common saying. Except that we forgot we had Tukban landship. We have our language, we have the spirituality. Many people don't know that that Obe actually originated. The first historical record of the mention of it is in Barbados. And so that's an interesting comment. And I'm glad that Dr. Pemberton picked up on it. To say otherwise, it all depends on who's looking and who's trying to tell you that you don't, convince you that you don't have a culture. But I'm also curious as to, back to the drumming for a second, I'm curious as to why it is that most of the drum orchestras ended up being three. from the battle orchestra in Cuba to the Nyabingi drums, the Tutban in Barbados, to Tambrin, to the three Orisha Shango drums in Trinidad. What is it that what is it in our culture, our African culture, that that determined that we should have three drums? And when you see more than three, they're usually, it's usually a multiplication or an additional drum that isn't really necessary, but we add it. And of course, I use the metaphor of the drums, the tukban, and so on for the to develop a different type of creolization theory. But even though it's about, even though it's a different creolization theory to come out, and it's about creolization, it's also about drums, because many historians a big debate in terms of history has been the continuities between Africa and the Caribbean. Some people who were interested in cutting the link and saying, well, we are Barbadians now, we're not African, would, for example, point to the Tutban and say, well, those are European drums, those are military drums, we have nothing of African left, except that the materials are Barbadian, but the rhythm, the memory, the style of playing and so on are African. And the structure, the idea of three drums and then the lead drum and so on. And you see the same thing in Tobago for the tambourine drums. So that is my interest, really, in terms of the continuities, and where do we pinpoint the continuities to counter the argument that we didn't retain much from Africa.
Well, it's very true. We retained a lot more than some people want to recognize and to accept. I mean, if you look at what is Caribbean music, there's definitely, you go back to Africa and you find that there are some parallels there. So it didn't happen by chance. I mean, if you take just take a Barbadian child that grew up with Barbadian sweetbread and put that child anywhere else, sweetbread doesn't taste the same in Barbados. So, you have your Barbadian roots, and that is what everybody has roots where you came from, and we can't deny that, or we can't continue to deny that. This whole story about Barbados has no culture is a figment of somebody's imagination, and it's what people would have liked you to think. And it's part of denying you a self. And every self has roots, and every self has means of expression, and every self therefore has a culture. There's nobody who is born without a culture.
Okay. Yep. It's a slave narrative. Well, not just a slave, it's a colonial narrative. Control, to say Brathwaite, the repression of the Barbadians. Yes, Dr. Medica.
Just Hazra to you. Thank you so much to the two presenters for their presentations. It's intriguing, this whole notion, that people have been, I don't know in which quarters, people have been saying that Barbados has no culture. It's very much the same thing that I hear here. Oh, Antigua have no culture, that sort of thing. Yes, but the intriguing thing is they will say that, and in the next breath, they will tell you that is not Antiguan, or that is not Barbudan, that is not our culture. So there's always the positive, oh, now I have no culture. But in the next breath, there's the indignant, that is not Antiguan, that is Jamaican, or that is Barbadian, that sort of thing. I was wondering, in terms of the inscription into the world of memory, how is the slave song entitled? How is it registered in the memory by UNESCO? So I'm hoping it's not registered as the slave song.
Stefan?
Dr. Burrowes, I do not know. I do not know how they have it inscribed as the name. I assume, though, it's going to be something similar to that. Yeah.
It's a good question, Hazra. Dr. Elizabeth Watson officially, actually, I think she did like several songs, admitted. So I think she worked with the museum. So I presume the museum worded it in such a way, probably the song of the enslaved or something, but you're right. I haven't looked it up. I will. But the time that Dr. Walcott is speaking about, we kept getting these WhatsApps about this slave song. So in the revival of it, I think the word was slave song. Now I'm like, that Gloucester University slave song. And we were like, but Stefan has done this before. So you're right. It's important because especially listening to it with that voice, Stefan, that voice was well chosen. I didn't realize that at the end she says there was a hesitancy as she begged Massa not to sell her. Actually, maybe we should play it again just to hear it again. But it seemed very real the way she was. It's as though she was speaking to him. So she's not deliberately creating a song with a beginning, middle, and an end, and A, B, A, or whatever they scored the music. It was spoken, yeah. Hazra, are you aware of Antigua? Any songs have been discovered for Antigua, for example?
It's I don't think from so early as the 18th century. This is another argument we have here when we talk about the origins of what we call Bena music, which we consider precursor to calypso. And so you will have many people, scholars, they call themselves enthusiasts, they talk about Bena music as the precursor to calypso, but no one has been able to say this is what the Bena is. What has been passed down is Bena was slave song, I guess, as Gloucester has said. But mostly what most of us know is that our parents or grandparents would have described or defined Bena music as devil music. So that meant that anything that was not Christian was categorized as Bena music. You know, don't be singing Bena in Sunday school. You know, why are you singing the devil music? That sort of thing. I know we do have a booklet or two, and you know they've got the label Bena music, but then you discover that some of these songs exist in the Jamaican catalog, like the Sly Mongoose, but different lyrics, that sort of thing. So no, I mean there are proud declarations of what's this is what the enslaved used to sing. But then when you question people, when you attempt to dig further, you never get any real answer. It's just it was the precursor to calypso. The enslaved sang this. There's this adamant, declaration, but no real research to back up these declarations. I actually did a search, and I think in the Memory of the World it's listed as an African song or chant from Barbados.
Probably Elizabeth straightened that up. Stefan, have you heard of Bena music? Because I can think of a Barbadian version of what she's saying.
Yeah, so Bena, I know you're thinking of banjo music, Marcia.
Yeah.
And that there was, I think that's a general description for any secular songs that were sung like post-emancipation, the turning of the 20th century, late 19th century. So that was a general categorization for those songs. So I don't think there was a particular Bena style from what I gathered in comparison to what happened in the other Caribbean islands. So it's just a collection of songs that they just term Bena. So there's like songs that are secular songs. So they have, I think they have roots all over the place. To be honest with you, that like how banjo was described. So some of them come from other islands, some of them come through slavery and through the indigenous Antiguan songs. So just a category, I think, is like a genre as opposed to a specific style from what I can gather.
Dr. Walcott, I do have a question with the African song or the slave song. So you had the very haunting female voice, as was transcribed by, what's his name?
Steele? Dixon?
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, it's very hard to put some importance in his name. But yes, as transcribed by him, was how did he identify did he identify that, you know, the chorus was sang by a particular group and there was a lead, and if the lead was male or female, anything of that sort?
He did say it was a female enslaved person. There was no chorus given. He just said it was a song sung by a enslaved female. So that was the total of the description we had for the piece.
Yeah, we don't know how many times he heard it. Lara has just posted in the chat the reference to Gloucestershire. Lara, is that the reference where they claim the slave song? They made a lot of noise about it a few years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at also.
That's it. Yeah.
It was quite a bit of noise they made as though we didn't know about it.
Yeah.
And by then I had heard Dr. Walcott's performance. As I said, the historian of me saw it in the book, but the first time I heard it perform was through Stefan. It was marvelous. Dr. Walcott, isn't it interesting? Barbados, do you know, Derek, it is still said Barbados has no culture. And unfortunately, on this campus, the seat of knowledge and resistance. So, and in the wider community, I've heard that it's been discussed on our popular call-in programs, especially around crop over time. It becomes an argument. Does Barbados have a culture? What is crop over? What is calypso? But I'm going to pass on to the audience, but just two things. We have a song that apparently was created just around emancipation. Lick and lock up them with hurrah for Gingin. And so we have these moments that root us in an African enslaved culture. The colonial narrative said, look, we've knocked out everything African in you, but it was a lie. We will be having a conversation probably in April when we're looking at the ancient lie. That's an ancient lie. Any other comments from anyone? Or Lara, would you like to say what the Gloucestershire Post says? Because I haven't looked it up.
I mean, yeah, it says, where are we now? If you click on the description, it is headed as an African song or chant from Barbados, late 18th century. And it gives, obviously, it credits Roger, it says here in this document, 2017, it was inscribed onto UNESCO's memory of the World Register in recognition of its international significance. It was nominated for the register by musicologist Roger Gibbs, who saw an image of the document in an online exhibition on Gloucestershire's archives website. So Roger, I think, was at the conference as well.
He was. He lives in Toronto.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. So
yes. Barbadian living in Toronto and knows Stefan well. So yeah. And actually, if you go on YouTube, I think someone from Marcoms is here. I said, go on YouTube, and it came up. Roger's version comes up immediately. Stefan, I don't know if you're guarding your IP, but your rendition is marvelous.
No, his predates mine by several years. So you know the algorithm loves to send people what they know already.
I think the visuals, Stefan, some of the images I know they're in the CXC history book. I'm sure Dr. Pemberton spotted them as well. But the choice of visuals, and right now it looks like you're in the Borealis, the lights of Northern Europe.
Yes, that's my background, yeah.
Your background is in Borealis. It's amazing. It's like your background is moving around. But the visuals are haunting. And it would, as historians, Dr. Pemberton, that's a good challenge to bring the history alive with the same things in the book, but the music and the interpretation, yes, it was very haunting.
Yeah, but to answer, sorry, Dr. Burrowes, to go back to Derek's question about white tree drums, I think there is if you were to take it from a scientific approach, tree drums, by having tree drums, they could cover the frequency spectrum. So you have bass, middle, and height. So you just need tree drums to cover that. So I guess that was a choice made by the drummers and whoever on an aesthetic level. They said, like, you know what, this sounds kind of cool. We have all this covered with just tree drums. So that's what I'm just assuming. But it's an interesting observation you made there.
Yeah, and I think also it is obvious that when the enslaved Africans were here, there were no European drums. They had their own drums. Barbados just happened to have the headquarters of the British regiment, and the band, the music band, was 100 enslaved men, no women. And so the British Army brought their own versions. And these guys then played on the versions. I always say the music that they had to play for the British was not the music that they would have played when they were in the villages. The music is thing. But then our form of drum was then transformed to be the British version of the drum, which these scholars misleadingly say Barbados has lost its culture. Look what they're doing. Actually, no, it's a matter of adopting the rhythms on the drum. Carol Clark has a question. Go ahead, Carol. This is Carol as an MA Cultural Studies. Carol.
Yes, Dr. Burrowes.
Hello.
Hey. It's not a question, it's more of a comment. I don't remember all the words of the song. I know it's a lot of sadness and her abuse and, you know, her powerlessness. But somehow to me, it's more a song of freedom. I know it seems a bad word to put with a song like that, but the fact that that song has lived on through all these centuries, and we are here in 2025 and we are talking about this, and it cements your statement that we do indeed have a culture, a female voice at a time like that, and somebody felt strongly enough about the words of the song, the truth of it resonated with somebody enough to put it to music, and now we have it to analyze and herald, maybe put in our halls, in our museum or something. But to me, it's a song of empowerment. And it is something that we should use to really, I don't know, speak to our young women particularly, and our young people generally. I hope that is what will happen. Yeah, that's it. Just a brief comment.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Carol is one of our MAs from, Carol, when were you here again? Very early.
2007, I think.
2007.
Yeah.
And she had, you had twins? And
Oh,
both were
yeah.
11 plus. It was crazy, but she got the MA done. So congratulations. But 2007, it's amazing. 21 years of cultural studies. It's amazing. Any other comments from anyone? I keep a promise that I'll keep the discussions on the 90 minutes and you come and join us again. Any other comments from anyone?
I do have one. My apologies. I was just looking at the transcript, and here they're saying chorus of laboring Negroes as they proceed in their work, and it seems they're crediting that to the bit of the song. And I agree with, sorry, in the transcript, yeah, it says chorus to the left of the chorus of laboring Negroes as they proceed in their work.
Oh, so that's what Stefan interpreted. So there's the literal Eurocentric, we do not know what we're hearing. Is that it, Stefan?
Yeah, well, given that most choruses I've come across are in call and response, there needs to be some sort of response to the ads. So as I said before, the transcription is not complete. As Medica says, Dr. Medica says, when we have that add-on, they said probably a chorus, possibly. It could be a chorus given the simplicity of the lyric, but it's probably a response that wasn't transcribed therefore. So it's incomplete no matter what detail is put on. And as a result of that, as I said, it could be left to interpretation. So I'm glad that my interpretation fitted with the description that came later on, though. I'm thankful.
No, it's lovely. Absolutely lovely. Roxanne, are you there? There's a poem that I learned when I was in school called Ancestor on the Auction Block. Is it by Viva Bell, Jamaican?
I don't know that poem, Marcia.
I will send it. It goes, gracious me enough, ancestor on the auction block. Across the years, your eyes meet mine, compelling me to look. I see your shattered feet. It is just the turn of the century. It is gripping, and it is, in a sense, making you do when you read the poem what this song makes us do. It forces us to look at them or look for them or feel them around you. Ah, there we are. Hazra got it. Ancestor on the auction block. So it's as though she, the poet, transported herself back to the 18th century, and she saw a slave market and she saw a sale. And it's a beautiful poem, has several verses, but she in conversation, looking at the person who's about to be sold, ancestor on the auction block. Hazra has put it up on the chat. You can look at it, Roxanne, but definitely Jamaican. Something like 1904 or something like that, Jamaica. Yeah. So it'd be nice, Stefan, if we could line up a few of, I don't know, I can see a performance coming from this where we could use the music and poems like Ancestor on the Auction Block that make us think, that make us, and even Look and Lock Up Done With is interesting as well. Do you know that though I sang that as a child, I've listened to children sing it. It was only a few years ago I saw the second verse. The second verse goes, she sell me, the sell me mother for 6 pence piece, hurrah for ginger. I didn't realize that. Snuck in that song is a moment of resistance. The sell me mother for 6 pence piece, but the rest of it is lick and lock up done with, hurrah for ginger, and everybody moves like that. But I have asked primary school teachers, do you realize that's in the verse? And they all go, no, they're just concentrating. This is Barbados. Camo has always said it, it's below the surface. Resistance is below the surface. If you want to understand Barbados, don't look at the surface. You then buy all the lies, the crooked lies, as Cabot says, look below the surface. Yeah.
One thing I want to mention, Marcia, about the drum making, the tambourine drum, I was very interested in how they make them. But one of the things that that we don't usually mention when we're speaking about drum construction and so on would be the rituals that necessarily accompany the drums, especially if they're going to be used for spiritual purposes. And you know, usually we use drums to call the ancestors so that we have manifestations of the ancestors and so on, which literally mean that the ancestors consciousness manifest in somebody. But then they're usually rituals that accompany that. And I would be curious as to how the rituals change, because the materials for the drums necessarily changed. And I'm wondering how the rituals, because the rituals are usually fairly conservative and strict, because it's a technology and you have to do this and that and the third and the fourth to the drums when they're done in order for them to function properly.
Exactly.
And I'm wondering how that changed over time from one location to the next in Barbados and Tobago and so on, but also how it changed from one location to the next, and how the technologies were adapted. So, for example, you know, whether the ancestors were asked which materials to use, if they were acceptable, which trees to use, if they were acceptable. Since we have these new types of drums, what type of rituals should accompany them? What materials should be used in the rituals? What materials you had access to in Tobago versus Barbados versus Antigua versus Cuba and Grenada. And so a big part of the culture outside of the physical construction of the drum is actually in the rituals and the ceremonies that accompany the drum.
You're very right. Dr. Pemberton sent a video. It's 10 minutes. There are 25 of us online if you want to watch. In the video, there's a lot of chat, as videos are, but then they focus on the making of the drum. And there's this tree that said it's only in Tobago. And they strip the tree. And then they strip until it's a thin strip. And then they soak it. And then they bend it and they leave it for weeks. As you're saying, there are a number of rituals. And then they tie it together and nail it in. And then they stretch the goat skin. So there is that aspect of ritual. And then you start to hear the rhythms. if we have it, I don't know if it is Dr. Pemberton, do you think? If there's a way we can fast forward it to the moment, or we can put it in the chat that everyone can find it. It's a YouTube link and it's on the tambrin drums. But Derek, you're right. In that video, though they might not know what you're saying, the videographer or the narrator is kind of just discussing what he's been told. What you just shared is that spiritual aspect of why that tree, why did they pick that tree? For example, I was stunned up. How did they know how long to take? How long they know how long it had to be cured? There are many instruments and bamboo. You have to cure bamboo if you're going to go into stick fighting. Why? You know, you leave the bamboo for like 3-4 weeks in cow down. Why? So yeah, I think it's interesting. I think we have our online people are just listening to us talk. Stefan, you want to throw in anything here?
No, just thank you for everyone who's listened. I just want to share the screen briefly, very briefly. So this is a tradition I was talking about Dr. Pemberton from Puerto Rico. I don't know if you've seen it. Right, let me see if I can share the sound
And
of
the
it.
tambrin drum without the okay.
So this is the Puerto Rican plena. It's a
That's
very
it.
big Puerto Rican identity. So let me play that. So they have the same pitch drums as well too. The middle, yeah. So it'll be interesting to investigate similarities if there are any connections, direct connections, because it's clearly obvious that they're following in some sort of tradition. So it'll be interesting to see if there were any conversations at any point in time between the two spaces.
Stefan, can you put up the image again?
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
What I
Alright.
remember from the video is that the tambrin drums look like the drums at the end. They're
At the end,
handheld
yes.
and they're round. So you see the
And-
drums to the right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So this is the chord, it's free, and then they turn up flat. I've never seen
Mhm.
flat drums.
Yeah, so these two traditions have them. Plena
Uh-huh.
and tambrin.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but we don't have any women playing tambrin. Totally
Yeah.
you. No, but
Yeah.
what you talked about, the rituals, that is important because now the tambrin music can take you into a trance, right?
Mhm.
And people who go into trance, get voices, advice, whatever. But you have to get them out of the trance, and only some people can do that. You know, so for the ritual to bring somebody out of a trance, you have to know what to do, and well, I'm not about to find out, but you know, if you look at what happens in a trance, it's kind of scary. I saw it in Maroons in Jamaica, and this lady just, you know, and then there was a big scuffle around her, and people were doing all kinds of things, and I voted. So I really don't know what was done. But part of the reason is that there are people.
Derek, you're the drummer. You can explain that to us.
But I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I have a question for Rita.
Yes.
At one point for Best Village, it is my understanding, and you can maybe confirm or not, that the Shango Orisha drums were banned from the Best Village performances because people would sometimes in the audience would sometimes have manifestations.
Well,
You know,
I
you're
don't
aware of that?
I don't know. I really don't know about that, but I do know that you can have manifestations from those drums, but I stay very far from drumming. I mean, when there was when I was growing up, it was something that I was curious about and I wanted to go, but of course you weren't allowed because my parents went to church. So, but there was one happening in a nearby community, and I was hearing it from the kitchen of our house. But I was really feeling the pull. And I got scared of the way I felt just hearing that drum beat. I had no clue what was going over there, but I was sure that I didn't want to be there. And it does that to you. It does that to you. It does have that pull. So there's definitely a strong spiritual side to drumming and the goat skin and the heating to temperature. Now, I don't know. What about the Puerto Rican? Do they heat their drum skins before playing? Because when it's happening, they have to heat before performance, right before.
Well, I know the heating, for example, with the casa drums as well, they heat them. And I know the heating is for part of it is for tuning, because without heating, then they're fairly flat. So just before performance, you'd heat them to so that they're tightened and you get a higher sound or a higher pitch. I don't know if they heat for any other reason. But we used to, for our djembes, when we started playing djembes in Barbados and PANELLISTS, we would also heat them. So we traveled to performances with electric heater and so on. We stopped that when we were negligent once and the skin burned. But if you tune djembes correctly, then you don't have to heat them. But there's some other drums, because of the way that they're constructed, for the skins to tighten and you get the correct pitch, then you have to heat them.
Yeah, I was in Bahamas for John Canoe, and the gatherings were everywhere, but this particular set of gatherings were under a bridge, literally. And they had gotten these pallets that we see in on customs areas when things are brought in. So they piled the pallets up, lit the pallets, and then made a circle of drums. And an elder came and quarreled with them. He says, no, you're not going to get the right pitch. The drums were too close. The elder was saying they'll be too high. You won't get the sound. He made everyone pull it back. So I got the sense that there's as you would say, there a science to the actual heating. And the young ones who had eagerly pushed the drums, but the older came and said, no, that's not going to get the sound that we want. And I was told actually when they go on the road, so this was 2013, they carry tea, the tea lights that you have when you have food warmers. They take the tea lights on the road to keep the drums heated. So 21st century technology. But the earlier one I saw, I have seen that in the records, enslaved people heating drums
on the side.
On a circle. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have always said we will do 90 minutes and that's it. It allows us to take it in. It allows us to think of the next one. There will be a discussion called "And the Ancient Lie, Barbados Has No Culture." And so that's coming up. There will also be a session on Caribbean effigies. And I am talking with Dr. Medica. Dr. Medica, you just threw something out that we have to think about, maybe more looking at the music or something, but it is culture through our eyes, so that everything that we want to discuss about ourselves, looking at it from a different perspective, is what I am hoping for. To my knowledge, we have been putting our previous discussions on YouTube, and I have been told that persons have gone and listened to them. I'm sure this one will be. Dr. Pemberton has given us the permission to put up her PowerPoint that she worked on, but the ancestor, Rita, it was a lovely presentation. You were able to bring it over to us, despite. Someone just put in the chat, was it Hazra put in the chat, the Tobago Tambrin drum, so you can actually look it up. Thank you, Dr. Pemberton, for a very interesting evening. Thank you, Dr. Walcott. I would like you to play us out with a song. And at the end of the song, we will then leave. So let us walk with the ancestors one more time. Your interpretation.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Massa by me, he won't kill me, oh. Massa by me, he won't kill me, oh. Massa by me, he won't kill me, oh. For he kill me, ship me regular. Massa by me, he won't kill me, oh. Massa by me, he won't kill me, oh. Massa by me, he won't kill me, oh. For he kill me, ship me regular. Massa by me, he won't kill me, oh. Massa by me, he won't kill me, oh. Massa by me, he won't kill me, oh. For he kill me, ship me regular. You bite me, you kill me, you shoot me, you rape me. Burn me out of my misery, my son. Why you will shoot me, why you will sell me, my son. Burn me out of my misery, my son. Massa, you bite me, Massa, just kill me. Oh Massa, set me free. Oh Massa, set me free. Oh Massa, set me free. Oh Massa, set me free.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Bye-bye. Have a
Thank you.
great
There's
day.
Bye.
21 of us.
Bye.
Thank you for staying. Thank you for listening.
Thank
See
you.
you in a couple of weeks. Megan, were you asking a question? Hi,
No,
Megan.
I just said thank you very much. Thank
Where are you from?
you.
Where's the accent? Are you here in Barbados or London?
Yes, I'm here in
or-
Barbados.
You're here in Barbados. Yes. Thank you, Megan, for joining us. Please
Thank
come
you.
again next time when we're doing Mr. Harding and Vaval and Burning Identities. Yes? Thank you.
Okay. All right.
We still have
Goodbye.
16
Good
people
night.
online.
Thank you
Good
very
night.
much, Marcia.
Hey, Norma. Was it informative? Was it worth the
Very
time?
informative, very informative. I didn't know that about the drums and the communication, and it's amazing what our ancestors did and knew, and we have no idea of some of those items, some of those things. Very, very informative. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Okay,
coming.
bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. We still have 14 people. Would anyone like to make a comment? y'all are hanging around. Lara, come on, talk to us, Lara. So I
Thank you
met
very
Lara
much.
in Trinidad at the conference and we
Yes.
hit it off. Born in London of Yoruba heritage. Yes, Lara, what did you think about it? Because
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm so pleased that I didn't miss this. I hadn't heard that song before. I felt like I'd heard it before, maybe in a play, but no. And thank you so much for sharing that. And that comment about culture, oh my goodness, it's a loaded comment. So this thing about culture and pure culture and people trying to say that this place hasn't got any culture, it's a pure fabrication. Everywhere, as Dr. Pemberton said, everywhere and everyone has culture. There's no pure culture, and culture evolves, and it's just incredible to find out that how our ancestors carried fragments of the culture, but I wouldn't even say fragments. They carried the essence of the Yoruba culture or wherever the cultures from wherever they came. And the fact that you were saying that these drums cause people to go into not chant, trances. It shows you the essence of the culture was carried through. So much so the British, they were scared, they banned the flip drums. But it shows the resilience and the fortitude of our ancestors, how they were able to create with whatever material they had. And so this thing about whether the drums was British or the drum, whatever, they create the new drums, but they still carry the essence of what they were trying to do with it. So it's really great to hear
But
this
Lara,
is
you just raised the point, and Derek is still online. Derek, is it possible that this really came from some part of Africa? That they were singing something that they were singing in Ghana, in Old Igbo, Cross River Delta. In other words, we really need to get some real research on it. Is that possible?
That's kind of what I'm doing, is trying to track it's almost like you could go back in time and see if you can find, and I believe there's a research somewhere in America. There's an American there's a not the Grioche people. There is a place in America where they still sing some of the songs from Africa, and it's handed down by word of mouth. But obviously they're not going to be exactly as they were when they first heard them. But what I love about what I've heard today is the essence, the DNA, the genetics, whatever you want to call it, is still there. And how do we prove it? I mean, yeah, that's a research project. Call me.
Marcia, the great challenge, as Stefan said a few times, is that when you reduce something, when you abstract something, and you reduce it to writing, to the musical score, there's a lot of it that is left out. And so the part that I suspect was left out is probably the part that would have been brought over from Africa, in terms of the chorus, in terms of the melody, in terms of all the parts of the music and the singing and so on, that you couldn't
transcribe.
That you couldn't transcribe. And that always happens when you reduce anything to writing. A lot of what you're trying to describe is left out, and that is the part that probably has the most continuity with Africa.
Yeah, in the Dixon book, but you know the book, right? It's all about Codrington College. It's so Gracious talk about reducing. So whether Steele or somebody wrote it down, by the time I went to England, they were then organizing the lines of the book. So I think it falls between words. So he says, I will heard this, and then comes a verse, and then so it's mixed in. So there's a reinterpretation in England. I think it's Cass Productions or one of them in the 18th century. So lots of reduction. But we have it. We have it. I certainly never thought of hearing it. When I saw it in that book many, many years ago, I never thought I would hear it. It's quite a thing to hear it. Dr. Member, do you look like you want to make a comment?
No, I'm listening very attentively. Yeah. The whole story of the music and the remnants, because it's remnants, I mean, I'm sure that the enslaved people sang songs of all kinds. It's just that one or those ones were recorded or transcribed, I should say. But I'm sure everywhere they gave expression to themselves in song, and we had a whole lot of songs at Emancipation, right? So, I mean, they didn't start singing then, but we don't know where those, we have no records, or at this point, we don't have any records of those accessible.
Yeah, it's very unusual. Remember, Pinkard records a lot.
A lot.
Records a lot. Most of these guys and there are guys who come through are busy recording the height of the trees and natural history, and literally they ignore all that's around them and pick out the coconut tree. That's the text of many a book of the time. So it is absolutely amazing and wonderful when one of them listens. When one of them writes, you know, they were eating conkeys. I was just telling my students that, literally spelled Conkeys. In the 18th century, they were eating conkeys. I'm like, whoa. But it's unusual. So we have to be grateful when somebody hears it. But yet, we always do hear the thing about Massa never stopped them from singing because it helped them do work, or it seemed to get them through the work to be done. So all he wanted was his canes cut. So if you want to sing, cut the canes. So that intervention, if anything, it's looking at what's happening in 21st century. We have generations and we probably lost generations and generations of musicians. In the 21st century, how many calypsos we're bringing out in every country every year? Just like that. That just wasn't invented. It means that we were always singing and always performing and always creating, but it wasn't relevant to the cutting of cane, which is interesting for not having any culture. Not having any culture for me is a story that focuses on the African as a unit of labor. Labor doesn't need to have culture. Labor doesn't need to think. Labor just needs to hold the cutlass and cut. It was interesting that Hazra, I don't know if she's still here, says it's in Antigua. Why? Because Antigua and Barbados share what they call high density populations. So lots of sugarcane. The labor force is really made to be labor force. Very little of anything else. So having no culture could be part of the text of controlling, as Kama would say, controlling the labor force. Don't forget you are just a unit of labor. Never think you're human. Sidebar, I don't like that image in town. There are those huge manacles that they look like they want to eat us and put us back in slavery. All right, we still have a few people online. Janice Mears is online. Hi, Janice.
Janice Mears. Hi, Janice.
And Jeanette also. Oh my goodness. Hi, Janice. How are you? How was that? Because you're the historian as well. How was that?
Hi. I missed the presentation.
But did you pick up the performance that Stefan put on again of the slave song, quote unquote?
I saw that one at the end.
Right.
Yes.
You saw a bit of it.
The 3 presentations. As I told you, I would have been out of class.
Yes.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Cheryl is coming in from Texas. Cheryl, what did you think? Mrs. Thomas? All right, well, or maybe they're all, their names are up, but they're no longer here.
Yeah.
Jeanette, hi, good night.
Hi.
Nice to have you. You're the linguist.
Yeah, that was a fantastic presentation. I am intrigued, of course, by the music because I have studied a lot of that in doing research for lexicography and getting the terms. But what I am most concerned about and most sort of, I would say, well, stimulated, but in a way that is kind of slightly angry about this no culture. That is not possible. Nobody alive is without a culture. So I shall be following that discussion very closely because everything that we do is our culture.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that statement has always annoyed me intensely and made me feel that how is it that we don't understand this aspect of ourselves, our history, our being, our heritage, everything. So
very,
very
I've
happy.
been telling students it is a statement that one should turn. I always say shine light on centipedes. Turn the spotlight back to the speaker.
Yes.
Back to them. It is about their identity. Why are they saying it? And in the 21st century, 2024, 23, 22, some of my graduate students told me that, yes, some of my colleagues cornered them and said, you have no culture. And they were busy. They're working on their master's in cultural studies and their PhD in cultural studies. Turn the statement back. It is, say, why are they saying it? Why are you insisting on embracing this colonial narrative in 2022, 23, 24? One of my PhD students told me, and she named, the students always say who said it, so I'm not going to say who said it. Someone stopped her, a senior lecturer from another Caribbean country, and said, Barbados has no language. And I said, really? We're back to the 70s. Hadn't Bruce St. John done a lot of work about this? You're saying it in 2022. Why? Why are you going back there? What's the angst that still exists? I think parochialism is still around. I think this big island, small island, my island, yours, all of that is still around. I think we speak about Caribbean unity, but we're really stuck in this construct of better than, lesser than.
Yeah.
And very individualistic.
Yes. Very.
I am king in my own little pond, and I feel that I am better for some reason.
Mind you, I come from Barbados. White Barbadians were the most boastful people around in the 18th and 19th century. I mean, they thought much of themselves. And to the extent to which they passed us on to the Black population, I don't know. So we in Barbados now have to wrestle with what they set up hundreds of years ago. So there's still the angst.
There is. There definitely is. Anyway, thank you so much. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It was lovely to have you online, a linguist there. So you were hearing, so when you saw the lyrics, what did you think? The lyrics of the song?
I couldn't read them very well, but I was hearing some of the lyrics, especially in what was entitled the Slave Song that Stefan put up. And I was quite struck by them, you know, what the lady was saying, plus with the minor key, because I have done music, I've studied piano, so I know the major and minor, and a minor key is always very haunting.
It's very haunting. Yeah. Isn't Emerton in a minor key? That lament.
Yes, I feel so, yes.
So yeah. So the irony is we don't know if he put it in minor, but it was in major. we literally have to take what we get. But
that's
it's there.
Right.
It is there. It is absolutely there.
Yes.
And the book, the Dixon book, the handwriting is there. It was not even, so the British publishers didn't even type it. They seem to put it off as is. So the first time I've seen it with lettering was with Stefan. I remember seeing it with handwriting. We need to hear that song more. Very,
we do.
Very
haunting. Yeah.
I think after the first time it was played, it was just silence. Thank you very much, Jeanette.